Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. So, in this lesson, we'll be analyzing the poem A Dream from Songs of Innocence. Okay, ji. So, let me first go through the poem. Once a dream did weave a shade over my angel guarded bed, that an emmet lost its way, where on grass methought I lay. Troubled, wildered, and forlorn, dark, benighted, travel worn. Over many a tangled spray, all heart broke, I heard her say, "Oh, my children, do they cry? Do they hear their father sigh? Now they look abroad to see, now return and weep for me." Pitying, I dropped a tear, but I saw a glow worm near, who replied, "What wailing wight calls the watchman of night? I am set to light the ground while the beetle goes his round. Follow now the beetle's hum, little wanderer, hie thee home." Okay, ji. So in this poem, the speaker describes dreaming of a lost ant. Um, he's dreaming, and he's dreaming about a lost ant who is crying out for her family. The speaker, relating to the ant's misery, is moved to tears by her plight, but soon a glowworm responds to the ant's cry and shows her the way home. So the poem paints a picture of a very generous, compassionate, a benevolent natural world and suggests that help is always available to those who ask for it. Now let us begin stanza by stanza explanation. First stanza. Once a dream did weave a shade over my angel guarded bed, that an emmet lost its way, where on grass methought I lay. So in this poem, when it begins with the speaker describing a dream they once had. The speaker describes the dream as if it were a mysterious weaver. Weaver, what is weaver? It is a songbird of tropical Africa and Asia, and somehow related to sparrows. And it is known for building elaborately woven nests. Okay, so the speaker describes the dream as if it were a mysterious weaver that created a shade over their angel guarded bed. So this can be understood literally as the darkness of night. However, the shade can also mean that the dream created a kind of magical spell. Because of this dream, the speaker no longer feels safe in their bed. Instead, they imagine themselves lying on grass in the dark and watching a lost ant, yani ke emmet, wandering around in confusion. The fact that the speaker dreams about the ant suggests that the ant is meaningful to them. The speaker seems to relate to the small creature that is lost in the darkness. The poem also contrasts darkness, yani ke shade, with the idea of the angel guarded bed, which represents safety and protection. So, this contrast suggests that the speaker feels confused or afraid in the dream, as if they cannot find their way back to the safe and kind world of their bedroom. It may also represent feelings of being lost in real life. The dream in the poem works like a fable, a short story with animals that act like humans. Through this dream, the poem explores ideas such as being lost and later found, loneliness, and protection. With this, we move on to the second stanza. Troubled, wildered, and forlorn, dark, benighted, travel worn, over many a tangled spray, all heart broke, I heard her say. In the second stanza, the speaker describes the troubles of the lost ant. The ant is described as troubled, wildered, and forlorn, and dark, benighted, travel worn, which shows that it is confused, lonely, and tired from wandering in the darkness. These descriptions seem to refer to the ant, but the way the lines are written also suggests that they could describe the speaker as well. This makes the ant seem like the speaker's secondary or alternative personality, reflecting the speaker's own feelings of confusion, worry, and exhaustion when he's talking about the feelings of confusion and worry and exhaustion of the ant. The lines also contain several pauses, जिसे हम क्या कहते हैं? Seizure, which create a slow and broken rhythm. This rhythm reflects the ant's tired and confused moment. At the same time, the repeating rhythm makes the poem sound a little like a nursery rhyme. The poem is mainly written in trochaic tetrameter, which means that each line usually has four trochaic beats, yani कि a stressed syllable, then followed by an unstressed one. Okay, na? Like damda. This rhythm is common in children's rhymes, such as Jack and Jill went up the hill. So the meter over here is also trochaic. So the simple rhyming couplets also add to the song-like sound of the poem. These childlike sounds reflect the innocent perspective of the poem, since it is part of Blake's Songs of Innocence. However, the ant's worries feel more serious and adult because she is lost and worried about her family waiting at home. In the dream, the speaker is lying on the grass but still sees the world from the ant's point of view. For example, the ant is described as traveling over many a tangled spray. So, what is just grass to the speaker appears like a difficult obstacle course to the tiny ant. This rough landscape reflects the ant's troubled feelings and may also represent the speaker's own worries. The poem also gives human qualities to the ant, जिसे हम क्या कहते हैं anthropomorphism. देखें, when the qualities of animate objects is given to inanimate objects, that is known as personification. But when the qualities of animate objects, yani कि human beings, they are given to animals, yani कि when if animals start talking, then that is known as anthropomorphism. Okay, so the poem gives human qualities to the ant by describing her as all heartbroken. The word heartbroken emphasizes the feeling of emotional brokenness. Let us now move on to the third stanza. Oh, my children, do they cry? Do they hear their father sigh? Now they look abroad to see, now return and weep for me. In the third stanza, the speaker hears the ant crying out for her family, from whom she's been separated. The poem continues to anthropomorphize the ant. She can speak and has human emotions. So the strong caesura in line 9. कौन सा वाला? Oh my children! Exclamation. Caesura. Do they cry? So this caesura in line 9 draws a lot of attention to the ant's main concern. क्या है? Her children. She isn't just distressed because she has herself is lost and weary and tired and exhausted. She is actually anxious for her children, not knowing if they are okay. In other words, the ant is a loving and compassionate creature trying to find her way home so she can take care of her family. Now, remember one thing, I am in between of the explanation telling you or explaining you all the literary devices over here. So, after the explanation, when comes the time of literary devices, I won't be going through those literary devices with such explanation, with such detail. Okay, ji. Now, listen to her repetitions also as she worries for her children, for her family. Now they look abroad to see, now return and weep for me. So, the anaphora on the word now here, like the repetition on the word do in the first two lines of the stanza, suggests that every moment brings fresh worry and misery for the ant. Who knows how confused and frantic her children must be without her. Anaphora also underlines the poem's simple rhythm, which again brings to mind children's rhymes. With this, we move on to the fourth stanza. Pitying, I dropped a tear, but I saw a glowworm near, who replied, what wailing wight calls the watchman of the night. Pitying, Haji. So, in this fourth stanza, the speaker feels sorry for the lost ant and drops a tear for it. This shows the speaker's sympathy and kindness. The speaker may simply feel empathy for the ant, or they may relate to the ant's situation of being lost and lonely in the dream or in the real life as well. However, the speaker only has time to shed one tear before noticing a glowworm, a small insect that shines in the dark like a firefly. So the glowworm hears the ant crying and asks who is calling the watchman of the night. The strong alliteration with W sound in words like wailing white and watchman draws attention to the glowworm and shows that it is an important character in the poem. Once again, the poem contrasts darkness with protection. At the beginning of the poem, the darkness of the dream was contrasted with safety of the speaker's angel guarded bed. In this stanza, the darkness of the night is contrasted with the light of the glowworm. The glowworm, called the watchman of the night, becomes a symbol of guidance and protection. Like the angel mentioned earlier, the glowworm represents a caring presence that helps those who are lost. This suggests that ant and perhaps the speaker as well is not truly alone. With this, we move on to the final stanza. I am set to light the ground while the beetle goes his round. Follow now the beetle's hum, little wanderer, hie thee home. In the last stanza, the glowworm speaks and explains that its job is to light the ground while the beetle goes his round. This means the glowworm gives light at night so that the beetle can move around easily. And the same light can help the ant as well. The glowworm therefore seems like a kind and protective figure, almost like an angel who is ready to guide the ant. So, the glowworm tells the ant that it only needs to follow the sound of the beetle's hum in order to find its way home. This creates a warm and comforting image. Because of the glowworm's light, the world no longer seems so frightening. The beetle's quiet humming makes it seem as if he is simply walking home peacefully, not struggling through the difficult and tangled plants of the wilderness. In the final lines, follow now the Beatles' hum, Little Wanderer, hie thee home. The poet uses repeated H sounds, okay? These soft sounds, which make them into alliteration, imitate the gentle humming of the beetle, okay? Hum, hi, home. Okay, all the words are beginning with H. So this is an alliteration of H. So they imitate the gentle humming of the beetle. This musical effect may also suggest that a poem itself can guide a person, just like the beetle's hum, helping people return to a simple and innocent understanding of the world. However, the rhyme between hum and home is not perfect, which may suggest that such guidance is sometimes quiet and not always easy to notice. The glowworm's advice could also apply to the speaker of the poem, who is like a little wanderer as well, wandering in a dream but still protected by angels. Since the poem ends with the glowworm speaking, we do not know for sure whether the ant actually reaches home, so there remains a small sense of uncertainty. What matters most, however, is not whether the ant reaches home, but that its cries for help were heard and answered. The poem therefore suggests that the world is kind and caring, even towards small creatures like insects, and that guidance and protection are always available to those who need help. With this, we end the explanation of the poem and we move on to the themes. There is only one theme over here, which is guidance, protection, and compassion. William Blake's poem A Dream tells about a dream in which the speaker sees a small ant called an emmet that has been separated from her family. The ant feels lost and worried, which may reflect the speaker's own feelings of loneliness and confusion. The problem is solved when the ant cries out for help and a friendly glowworm appears to guide her home. The poem is told in a simple childlike way and suggests that when someone asks for help, they will receive it. It presents the world as a kind and caring place where guidance and protection are always available. The speaker describes nature as a world where creatures help one another. When the little ant cries for her family, a glowworm, similar to a firefly, quickly comes to help. The glowworm gives light in the darkness and protects the tired ant by lighting the ground and helping her find her way. The glowworm is not the only helpful creature. It tells the ant to follow the beetle's hum, which will lead her home. This means the beetle is also helping guide the ant. The phrase that the beetle goes his round suggests that helping others may be part of his regular duty. In the same way, the ant wants to reach home so that she can care for and protect her own children, just as the glowworm and beetle help her. By placing this story in a natural world full of kind and helpful creatures, the poem suggests that the world, especially when seen from a perspective of innocence, is naturally compassionate even when someone feels lost. However, the story of the ant is actually an allegory, meaning it represents something about human life. The glowworm who protects and guides the ant is similar to the angel who guards the speaker while they sleep. The words used to describe the ant as troubled, bewildered, and forlorn could easily describe the speaker as well. When the ant cries in sadness, the speaker feels pity and sheds a tear, which shows that the speaker shares the ant's feeling. In this way, the dream reflects the speaker's own life and struggles. It seems to give the message that friendly and possibly divine guidance is always available to people who ask for help. Now we move on to the symbol, and the symbol is darkness and light. The poem uses darkness to symbolize confusion, loneliness, and being lost, while light represents guidance, protection, compassion, and being found. The poem contrasts darkness and light right away, with the speaker saying that the lost ant of the dream was dark, benighted. In other words, darkness is associated with being anxious, lost, and miserable. Later in the poem, the speaker sees a glowworm, a kind of insect which sheds light. The glowworm offers to help the ant and refers to itself as the watchman of the night. In other words, the glowworm, through the act of lighting the ground, is going to help the ant find her way home. In this way, light is associated with guidance, protection, and being found. Darkness and light may also symbolize ignorance and enlightenment. Early in the poem, the speaker describes the ant as dark and benighted, which means ignorant. The ant is unhappy because she is ignorant. That is, she does not know where she is or how to find her way home. However, with divine guidance, that is, the help of a glowworm or an angel, the ant finds her way home. In this way, darkness and light relate to knowing and not knowing. With this, we move on to the literary devices, and I'm only going to talk about the literary devices which weren't shared or which weren't explained in the text. So the first literary device is alliteration, and we have already talked about it while through during the explanation. The second one is assonance. Moments of assonance help to give the poem its musical nursery rhyme tone. For instance, listen to the sounds in these lines. Who replied, what wailing white? Okay, the sounds of I. Calls the watchman of the night. Okay, the sounds of A in call and watchman, and the sound of night, the I connecting with white and replied. So, those paired, yani कि in couples, in pairs, long I sounds and soft A sounds make the glowworm speech feel gentle and musical, and thus make the glowworm itself sound like a comforting presence. The second literary device is imagery. Those who have understood and actually listened to the explanation would know that the poem is full of imagery. So, imagery helps the reader to imagine the dark, dangerous, but ultimately generous world of the speaker's dream. In the world of the dream, the speaker is lying in the grass and sees a lost ant wandering over many a tangled spray. In other words, from the ant's perspective, the grass that the speaker is lying on is a difficult terrain she must cross in search of her family. This image might even draw a parallel between the ant's struggle and the speaker's difficulties in the waking world. In dark, benighted times, even an ordinary stroll over the grass might seem like a dangerous and difficult journey. The next literary device is Sejra, and we have talked thoroughly about Sejra. The next literary device is anthropomorphism. We've talked about it, but I'm going to talk about it again. So, anthropomorphism makes this poem feel both childlike and dreamlike. The poem anthropomorphizes an ant, a glowworm, and a beetle, instilling in them not only with human qualities but divine qualities as well. The ant is described as having lost its way among a tangled spray of plants and grasses. Now she is separated from her family and is therefore all heartbroken. The ant speaks for herself. She is her own character. This makes the poem feel more like a fable, that is, a kind of morality tale with animal protagonists. The next literary device is end stop line. While a few of the poem's lines are enjambed, most are end stop. The mix of enjambed and end stop lines helps to pace the poem. For instance, the first stanza contains two enjambed lines and thus moves quickly, fluidly, setting the scene and introducing the dream itself. In contrast, the second stanza contains only end stop lines. Okay, look at it. Troubled, wildered, and forlorn, end stop line. Dark, benighted, travel worn, end stop line. Over many a tangled spray, end stop. All heartbroke, I heard her say again, end stop. So, by encouraging the reader to pause at the end of every line, not to mention within the lines as well, due to all those hijra, end stop lines slow the poem down considerably, creating a stop and start rhythm that evokes the ant's uncertainty. The poem's end stop lines help to emphasize its end rhymes as well, keeping the poem's nursery rhyme flavor upfront and emphasizing that this is a childlike song of innocence. For example, let's look at lines 15 and 16. Okay, and that line is the only other place after the first stanza in the poem that uses enjambment. Who replied, "What wailing white calls the watchman of the night?" So, enjambment here suggests the glowworm's confidence, as opposed to the fearful hesitancy of the ant, whose every phrase, "Do they cry? Do they hear their father's cry?" is broken up by a pause. The glowworm's speech feels more expansive and certain, even as it is asking a question. The glowworm isn't afraid or confused by the darkness of night because it is capable of illuminating that darkness. The rest of the poem uses more firm end stops. Now listen to the glowworm's final speech here. "I am set to light the ground while the beetle goes his round. Follow now the beetle's hum. Little wander hie thee home." All these lines are end stop. So these last few end stops again draw attention to the rhymes, and in particular to the musical slant rhyme between hum and home. But they also make the glowworm sound authoritative as it gives the ant simple, clear directions. Perhaps it won't be so hard for her to get home as she expects. With this, we move on to the final literary device, that is parallelism. Parallelism gives the poem rhythm and musicality. The poem's first moment of parallelism appears when the speaker gives this upsetting description of the ant's feelings. Feelings, the stanza's grammar suggests, are also the speaker's. Troubled, wildered, and forlorn, dark, benighted, travel worn. These two verses are written in parallelism. With one sad adjective after another, these similarly structured lines feel heavy and troubled and evoke the feeling of labor lost and afraid through a menacing landscape. Ant and speaker alike, these parallel lines suggest are having a pretty rough time of it. Now we move on to the form of the poem. A dream consists of five four-line stanzas, yani कि quatrains. This simple form, coupled with regular meter and rhyme, gives the poem an almost nursery rhyme feel, which makes sense, as this is one of Blake's Songs of Innocence poems, meant to evoke the clear-eyed delight of childhood. With this, we move on to the meter. A dream is written in trochaic meter, and we've also talked about it. Meaning each line contains four trochees, metrical feet, yani ke, with a dum da rhythm. This is often called falling meter because the lines begin forcefully and then end on weaker, unstressed syllables. दिस पोयम हाउएवर यूजेस कैटलिक्सिस कैटलिक्स के बारे में हम पहले बात कर चुके हैं कि जब वो जो एंड वाला राइम था अनस्ट्रेस वो हटा दिया जाए एंड द लाइन रादर देन एंडिंग विद एन अनस्ट्रेस सिलेबल इट एंड्स विद स्ट्रेस सिलेबल तो बिगिनिंग भी स्ट्रेस सिलेबल से हो रही है और एंडिंग भी प्लस स्ट्रेस सिलेबल से हो रही है सो दिस पोयम यूजेस कैटलिक्सिस मीनिंग that lines leave out the last unstressed syllable and end on strong stress syllables. Take the first line, for instance. Once a dream did weave a shade. Okay? Just wait a minute. Look here. Stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, and then stress again, but the unstressed syllable is missing. So once a dream did weave a shade. Okay? So, and wait a minute. Ji. So ending most lines on those strong stresses gives the poem livelier tone. And in general, this simple, forceful musical meter makes this poem feel like a nursery rhyme, fitting for a childlike song of innocence. Now we move on to the rhyme scheme. The poem's simple rhyme scheme runs like this: double A, double B. This uncomplicated pattern contributes to the poem's childlike tone by tying each couplet into a neat little bow. The poem matches its rhymes to its reassuring tale of guidance and compassion. While the majority of the end rhymes in this poem use full rhyme, that is, they rhyme exactly, the first and last rhymes are both slant. देखो majority of the end rhymes in the poem are full rhyme यानी कि they rhyme exactly but the first and the last rhymes in this poem are both slant rhymes in lines 1 and 2 shade rhymes with bed okay slant rhyme है contrasting the safety and comfort of a warm place to sleep with the uncertainty and fear children often associate with darkness. Okay, so it is contrasting the safety and comfort of a warm place to sleep with the uncertainty and fear children often associate with darkness. So, with this, we end the explanation. I hope you understood everything. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. Jazakallah.